genetic and carrying all those little stock wire handles in. You guys have seen that before. Boxes to made it kind of a nursery for our small apple. So welcome back, everyone. Today what I'm going to share with you is I'm getting ready to put our orchard in, or Mrs. Wranglerstar and I are, and we are getting into grafting. And what grafting is basically producing your own apple tree starts out of rootstock. For grafting you need two things. You need a piece of what they call scion wood, which you see right here to the right. I've got three particular brands here, three of my favorite apples. We have 4 Honeycrisp, Grafting, and Spitzenberg. And what scion wood is, it's a first-year growth of a new apple tree. And what's included in this is all of the genetic information that the tree needs to produce the apples. What type of variety it is, whether it's a dwarf, semi-dwarf, or full-size, all of that information that will ultimately turn into a tree is included in the scion wood. What the grafting part of it includes is connecting that to what we'll call rootstock, or what is called rootstock. So I've got some rootstock here that I've been keeping in the basement, and all this is as you can see, it's part of the roots that have been dug up from an apple tree. This is a known quantity. This is an M7 rootstock, and we bought this from a friend of ours that has an orchard. And you know, I may be using some of this terminology, but I don't want to give you the impression that I am an experienced orchardist or have a lot of experience with this, because I don't. I'm simply kind of learning and sharing as I'm going along, and I'll share my results. But apparently these are M7s, and what that would tell me is, I don't know. I guess I could go back and find out. It's a known quantity. It's a root quantity that I can, or a rootstock that I can rely on, that I know is going to produce well, is how I understand it. Now the rootstock is essentially the engine of the apple tree. So what the grafting part of it's going to be is we will take this rootstock, this M7, and then the scion wood, and we'll connect these together in a way that they'll hopefully start producing apple trees. So that's what I'll be sharing with you today. So to get started with this, we need a few tools and a couple different things, and I'll show you what I put together and how they're used. So I guess a good place to start is with a grafting knife. This is not a grafting knife. This is just your standard garden variety Victorinox pocket knife. But it has a really thin blade, and that's the thing that I learned when I was learning to graft was you want a blade that's really thin. A dedicated grafting knife has a blade real similar to this, but it's got a chisel grind on it. In other words, it's flat on one side and it's ground like an Emerson blade, ground like that. Why? I'm not really sure. Maybe for ease of sharpening, because a grafting knife needs to be exceedingly sharp. But I think rather than spend money on a specific grafting knife, this will work fine. If you don't have one, maybe a razor knife or a kitchen knife, you know, something that's got a really narrow grind on it is going to work fine. So that's what we'll be using for this. So one point I've always tried to get across to my videos is to give people the power or the mindset to try to expand their abilities and their knowledge, and to try things that they've never done before, and to not be concerned so much with failure. I think that failure is so looked down upon in our society, our current society, that it scares people from trying to get out and to try things, new things that are outside their comfort zone. I look at Benjamin Franklin as a perfect example. He was not a real intellectual scientist. He was a trial and error guy, and I kind of associate myself with him. He was just from dogged perseverance, would just keep trying and keep trying things until finally he struck and found something that won, something that worked. And you know, one of my favorite quotes is from the poet Robert Brown, who said, "But a man's reach should exceed his grasp." And what that says to me is that because something looks impossible, doesn't necessarily mean that we can't do it. And that's why these videos, I do these videos and share these with you. You know, this may be a failure, this may not work, but you learn by doing. and by doing, you expand your knowledge and expand your experience, and you might find something that a passion or a joy that you never would have gotten exposed to just by trying it. So that's what I like about America, and I see especially on the West Coast side. You know, I think what it is. I think what makes Americans unique is the fact that the ones that were willing to take the journey across the Atlantic and come and settle this rugged country, and to leave all the comforts of England or the Netherlands or Germany, wherever they came from, they had a spirit that still exists in America. And even more so, I think, to the West. Even those people that were brave enough to come to America, that settled on the East Coast, there was another group that was willing to take on the Oregon Trail and to bring their families and to settle the wildernesses of the West. And so that spirit is in our DNA, and it is very pervasive out here. I've worked and lived, spent a lot of time on the East Coast, and it's just a little different mentality. I'm not saying one is better than the other. It's just that it's different. So you see a lot of people willing to take chances and take risks, and just that pioneering spirit that I enjoy so much. And that's why. So if I'm doing something wrong, I'm not too worried about it. I used to get a little upset when people would come on and point out all your mistakes. But the fact is, if a guy's trying and to learn new things, I think that's all you could expect to do, and that's the highest level of achievement, is to just keep pressing forward. So. Yeah, what's that got to do with apples? I'm ranting again. So let's continue on with our grafting, and we'll learn together. All right, let's see if we can't graft one of these rootstocks here. So where do you choose? As long as that graft is up, a foot or so off of the ground, to keep it away from moisture, so it's not getting rotted or mildewed. I think we're probably fine. So we'll cut that off there above one of the buds, and then we'll take our knife and we'll make our first cut. Try to pull the rootstock into the blade, and a nice clean cut. Looks pretty good. I'll trim that edge a little bit. Alright, I'll set that aside, and we'll take our scion wood here, and you can see that the buds are facing up. We've got plenty of room there, and then you can kind of take here and line these up, because we want them to be pretty close. I'll put my thumb right there, kind of making a mental note, and then I'll make my next cut here. All right. Now we're going to put kind of a little relief cut back inside, like towards it. And remember, when you're making these cuts, you need to really lock your fingers together, because you're going to be cutting back to your hand. If this knife slips, it's really sharp. It's going to cut your hand really badly. I've seen some people take a small board, drill a hole in it, and then put their hand behind that, so that if the knife slipped, it's not going to cut your hand. It hits the board. And I think that's probably a good way probably came about from teaching people who are not familiar with using cutting tools. I found it to be a bit clumsy and not ideal, so I don't want to rely upon that. I think good bushcraft cutting techniques will prevent you from getting injured. So you can see right those line up nice. And so I've made that little cut right there. And we're going to do the same thing on this one. So we'll kind of get a rough mental note where that is, and locking our fingers back together, we'll make another, just a little cut there. think the purpose for that is to get the more contact, more surface area contacting, and then those, it's hard to see there, but those overlap. That little cut slides inside the other one, and there makes it a little bit more secure. Okay, so you can see everything's come together pretty nicely, fits nice and tight. Now we're going to use our rubber bands here. I'm sure it's not the only thing you can use, but I found to kind of put my thumb on there, and we'll wrap these up. Nice firm pressure, and that will hold that wood together. This is always a tricky bit for me. Make sure that we maintain that contact, and then once you get it started, you kind of dress that up a little bit. It seems to go pretty good. Alright, got a nice wrap around that. This, for me, is always the hardest part. So we want to make kind of a half hitch. You want to be sure to leave yourself enough tail. A half hitch to tie off the rubber band. Some people say 2, but I found that 1, if you're using a rubber band, I think 1's enough because it's pretty sticky. There, you can see that seems to hold together just fine. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, what we want here is, I've heard anyways, people say anywhere from 2, we have 1, 2, 3 to 4 buds. So, as I say to my friend Todd and I've always said, more is better for everything except for salt. We'll go with 4 right there. Looks real good. Okay, so now we'll take this stuff here, this yellow stuff, the grafting seal, basically just turns into almost like a rubberized hard plastic. I was doing this, I started this video last night and I kind of finished it up today, and I forgot to clean out my brush, and I noticed that it had a plastic coating over it, kind of like that stuff that they dip screwdriver handles in, or plier handles in. You guys have seen that before. So I guess that this stuff, it just protects it. Protects that graft, keeps moisture and things out of, I guess, whatever needs to be kept out of there. And then a little dab on the top there on that new cut. So that turned out pretty good. This is a Gravistine, so now we'll make a label for it. And you can use the write-on labels, whatever you use, it's just got to be waterproof. So Mrs. Wranglerstar got these, so I'll start with the scion, which was or not a scion, but the rootstock was an M7, and this is a Gravistine. So and then the year, and then we'll apply this to our newly grafted apple tree. Especially when I think it would be really interesting to see the different varieties. I would definitely want to know what I had, so labeling was nice so we can kind of duplicate that or plant more of the ones we like. So we've dedicated one of our garden boxes made it kind of a nursery for our small apple trees that we've grafted. You can see them planted in there, so we'll keep them here through the summer and look after them until they get a little bit bigger and stronger, and then we'll transplant them down into the orchard area.